all teams in Florida every single year, like a round robin. I think UCF fans can get behind that. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I'm your host, Sean Green. Before we get started, as always, a quick word from our sponsor, BetOnline. It's down to the last 4 teams. BetOnline has been your tournament bracket headquarters all March long. And now that we're almost down to the finals, we've still got a lot more in store. MLB is here, and NBA, NHL playoffs are around the corner. As always, BetOnline is the #1 source for your summer sports wagering. Head to BetOnline today to stay updated on all the action, and remember to use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. Also, we are sponsored by Cut. Hey, Believe Nation, as you all know, we've partnered with Cut, the social betting platform. Cut is a peer-to-peer betting platform that allows you to bet directly against your buddies and other fans. That's right. You can join Believe UCF crew on Cut today and bet directly against me and other hosts on your favorite sports, pop culture, and politics topics. Cut is the ultimate put your money where your mouth is platform, and it's legal here in Florida. Be sure to follow @CutBet on all your social media channels and download the app via the App Store or cut.com. Use code BELIEVEUCF for a 10% deposit bonus. All right, guys, how are we doing? Listen, every day gets closer and closer to the spring game. We are 1 week away from putting the ball down. UCF, I think, announced, I'm recording this early in the day on Friday, so I think UCF announced a little bit more about the spring game. I think they announced it, dropped it at 4:07, so a lot of news just came out about an hour ago, but I'm really excited for it. Again, I think with this year's spring game specifically, there's not as much, I don't want to say hype, because I think that's not the right word. I think people are hyped for the spring game, obviously, and people are excited to, see KJ Jefferson put the ball down and see what, we could potentially have come fall. But there hasn't been a lot of noise coming out of spring, right? And we kind of talked about that, but again, not having a quarterback controversy, kind of knowing where UCF stands has made it so that this spring, there's been very little to come out of spring camp. We know some of the heavy hitters. We know, who is really kind of making a name for themselves out on the practice fields this spring. But we're really going to be able to see next week for the spring game. Not many practices left. I'm going to be out. I'll be there tomorrow after scrimmage number 2, and you'll get content. Follow me at Sean M.R. Green as always for content post scrimmage number 2, and we'll see who we get to talk to. I know we'll talk to Gus and we'll talk to a bunch of players, but excited to hear what they have to say post scrimmage number 2. But listen, a little bit lighter of an episode today. I'm going to be honest, again, not too much coming out. We have some comments from Ted Roof that he talked about that we could get into, but again, it's a lot of coach speak. You like what you hear out of Ted Roof, though. I will say that. And obviously, we're going to do a whole breakdown of spring once kind of spring is over, and we get into sort of that off-season dead period where players start to transfer and a lot of other stuff. But, Ted Roof and Coach Harris have both, been very forthcoming on the offensive, defensive side of the ball, and we'll get into all that at a different episode. But a couple things came out this week that I thought were more inclined to talk about. First being this. Gus Malzahn was on, I think it's Always College Football. I think that's the show with Greg McElroy. And I implore you guys to go check that out because I think it was a really good conversation. And listen, again, like I've said about Gus is he's pretty much the same when he talks about certain, topics. And this was definitely one of those instances, right? But I think it was a really good conversation, and Greg did a good job interviewing him. But one of the topics was, again, having UCF or having all the Florida schools do a round robin every year, basically, and having UCF, Florida State, and Miami kind of go against each other in a non-conference schedule. Obviously, UCF is playing Florida this year, and that kind of started the conversation or created the conversation of, listen, that's one of, if not the biggest games on the schedule. it would be so cool if we get to play all these other teams. And Gus was the one that basically said, I would love to put the ball down, see who's better. And he talked about recruiting against these guys and every year kind of closing that gap a little bit more. And again, you see where UCF is in the rankings right now. I mean, they're 14th in the 2025 recruiting rankings. So the gap is closing. But what also helps that gap is beating those teams in Florida. The Floridas, the Florida States, the Miamis, right? I think you go back to when UCF beat Florida in the bowl game. Not saying that was a turning point in recruiting. I think the recruiting aspect was always going to kind of go to another level. But what I will say is beating Florida proved to recruits, I mean, why not go to UCF? Florida's kind of in a downward spiral. UCF beat them. UCF's going to a power conference. They just beat Florida. And UCF has that leg up on Florida over the last couple years. Because what are Florida fans going to say? They can shove their recruiting number in our face, but you can also say, we beat you a couple years ago in a bowl game. And then Florida fans say, well, we had a lot of opt-outs and our coach got fired. And again, a bunch of excuses, but that matters. And I think for Gus to come out and say, hey, we would love to play a round robin for our non-cons. And listen, there's no way that's happening. There's no way that all these schools are going to agree to that. Strictly because, again, the in-conference schedules are just so tough now. Like, if you look at how many Power 5 schools are in each conference now and how the schedule shapes out, I mean, UCF specifically was kind of not canceling, but we're supposed to play Maryland. That's not happening anymore. Because, again, like, our schedule's already so tough that to play another Power 5 school in your non-cons is not a smart move if you want, obviously, to be at another level. Right? So to play for your non-cons, a Florida State, Miami, I mean, you're looking at a really, each Florida team would have the toughest schedule in the country. But also, it's like, that's kind of what fans want to see. Fans want to see those matchups. Fans want to see that. I mean, UCF versus Florida, you just see online about students looking for tickets and people looking for tickets. That's going to be one of the most anticipated games in college football this year, is Florida UCF. And for anybody that says that's not true is out of their mind. There's a realistic chance that by that week, UCF's undefeated. Florida, depending, I mean, their coach might be fired by then, but that's huge. Those games matter. Interstate games matter. So for Gus to come out and say that, it was already known, and again, it's nothing new, but again, the recruiting aspect was the one that he said, listen, like, to play those games, it only helps your recruiting. It only helps. Because you could say, we listen, that school that you're considering, we beat them. We do it differently. That school's in disarray. I mean, there's clearly a top two right now. And this is just my personal opinion. You have Florida State, you have UCF, and then you have the other two, right? UCF and Florida State are in a much better... Obviously, Florida State is right now at the top of the state. But UCF and Florida State are in a really good position. They're both recruiting at a high level. They're both playing high-level football. Obviously, UCF, again, first season in the Big 12, you win 6 games. Not an extraordinary season, but you just feel like it's bound to break the ceiling at some point. Florida, again, I've been on record saying I think UCF has a really good chance to go into the Swamp and win. I think UCF has the better roster. It's going to be tough because playing in the Swamp is always tough, but I like UCF's chances. Miami's just a crapshoot. You don't know what you're getting from Miami. They're always ranked in the top 25, and they never finish there. That's the Miami Hurricanes. But I really like what I'm hearing. And listen, I hope in the coming years that Terry Mohajir will do kind of something similar. Let's schedule Miami, right? Let's schedule Florida State. let's get these matchups on the books every couple years to have something to look forward to. I mean, I don't think UCF plays Florida again until 28, 29 or something. But again, like, you look forward to those years where you have something to look forward to like that. Like this year, yeah, we have a really good schedule. You got Colorado, right? You have Utah, you have Arizona, you have some really good games on there. But nobody's looking forward to any game more than the Florida game. So it gets people excited, gets people pumped, gets people ready to go. So we'll talk about it more, but when Gus said that, I'm like, Terry Mahajr needs to kind of get working on getting some of those games scheduled. All right. Again, like I said, short episode. Next week will be much longer because we'll talk about some things we're excited for spring ball, and then the week after that, we'll talk about what happened in the spring game. But this week's kind of one of those weird weeks where not much happened. If you want more UCF content, though, if you want to learn more about our baseball team, softball team, hear what they're doing, go check out the UCF Report. That's my show on the Zone Heads Orlando Podcast Network or feed. That's every Tuesday. We drop an episode hosted by me talking about more than just football. I know we talk basketball on the show sometimes too, but this is mostly a football show. So if you want all things UCF content, go check that out over there. But let's talk about our good old friend Scott Frost. That kind of blew up a little bit on UCF Twitter over the last couple days. Scott Frost, I forgot exactly what it was. I think it was an interview. Some journalist did a article on him, and it was very interesting. I'm going to be honest. Wasn't much in the article when it came to meat and potatoes, I would say. Like, there wasn't many quotes from Scott Frost. It was very cut and dry. But there was one quote that everybody, I would say, loved, but also kind of there was that little hurt in the heart there. Scott Frost said in the interview, in a statement he gave to CBS Sports, Frost states, "In 10 years, UCF could be a national power. It's the best college town in Florida by far. Orlando, the campus is beautiful. In 10 years, UCF could be a national power." Now, let's be real. We've known this. And non-UCF fans will probably watch this show and be like, this guy is an idiot. What do you mean you've known this? UCF's not going to be a national power. Scott Frost is just saying whatever. We've known this. Look at how UCF's recruiting. Just look. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know UCF is one of the top schools recruiting in the country, and they have been for the last couple years. UCF is in a conference that's wide open. Anybody can take over the Big 12 at any time. It's really good. Every school is good, but there's obviously, and we know this, there's not a powerhouse right now. UCF's primed and ready to do that. Now again, when Scott Frost left, let's call it what it is. There was going to be no other school that he would leave for than Nebraska. Played quarterback there, was his first love. We all know this, right? He was not leaving UCF for any other program but Nebraska. But it does make you sit and wonder, hey, Scott, if you would have just stayed, a lot could be differently for you. Unless there was a lot of stuff at Nebraska that I don't really blame Scott for. Maybe not his best coaching job, but there was a lot of other stuff in Nebraska. And again, I think, there's so many factors as to why he took the Nebraska job. And, again, I like Scott Frost a lot. Obviously, he is the reason. He is the real reason why UCF started to get that notoriety. Obviously, led the 2017 national championship team. But he's the reason he's a big reason why UCF is in the position they are today. Huge reason. Without him, UCF is not in the position they are. And I get there's some salty UCF fans that were like, again, if you just stayed and didn't leave, who knows where we could be? Who knows what you could have done? But at the same time, I'm in the boat. Everything happens for a reason. I still believe that. I think, getting Josh Heupel, he had a really good second year. Then we had Gus Malzahn. I think everything happens for a reason. And I'm happy for Scott that it seems like his life is pretty good right now, making a boatload of money off that buyout and, living in Arizona. And who knows what can happen down the line? I mean, who knows what can happen? I'm sure he'll get another job somewhere. Maybe one day that's UCF. But I think the comment shows you, and I know he has love for UCF. I'm sure there's a little bit of regret, but that comment just shows you that other people are seeing it. It's not just us. People know UCF is on the rise. People know UCF is going to be dangerous in the future. And they already are now. All right, everybody, that's going to do it. Like I said, short episode for this week's episode of Charge On. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, follow, do all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Like I said, follow me on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, at Sean M.R. Green. I will be at Spring Scrimmage post media availability tomorrow. So that'll be really interesting and get a lot of feedback from scrimmage number 2. All right, everybody, this has been Charge On, presented by Bet Online. We will see you next week.